Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the first ever Connected Educator Month Connected Cafe. I'm kind of proud of this idea. The idea is to hold an event every night that's more casual in nature, that lets you meet and actually connect with people that you have probably followed for a long time and revere in some way. And tonight we have two of the greats, Dean Shareski and Vicki Davis, both who have pretty significant histories in the blogosphere. So if you think that you might want to say hi, grab the microphone in some form or turn on your own webcam, do please go through the audio configuration setup. You're looking for the menu, Tools, Audio Setup, or you can look for a little microphone with a red star that lets you do the same thing. So we have a little bit of an agenda, but we should have a lot of fun as well. And I promise there will be very little talking from me. Just be aware there are lots of things going on with Connected Educator Month. I have no idea what the badge of the day today actually is. At some point I'll look it up and make sure that if I have the code for it, you can get the code and you'll be able to use it at the end of the session. I'm not a huge badge fan, but if you are, then I really want to help you get the right badge. And there's so much fun. There's this book club, there's the Ed Connector, and we're doing a lot. Every weeknight, we're going to have special guests on. So this is a chance for those of you who jumped in the room to indicate where you are participating from. Look to the left of the map. You're looking for the star icon. You're going to click on that and click twice. And Anne has guaranteed that we have an international audience. Hooray for Anne. Oh, Anne, maybe you're on an iPad. I don't know, I wouldn't see the map. But we know Anne is in Australia. Right. Don't get me started. I wonder if the map's just still downloading for some folks. Hey, do we have Brazil in the house and Central America? That would really be fun. Tell us where you're from. Guatemala. Awesome. Colombia. Let's do shout it out. Okay, this is where I get to stop talking. So what I'm going to ask our esteemed guests to do is to each introduce themselves briefly. They're going to get to say a lot more, and so are you. But at this point, I just want them to let you know who they are in case you don't know them. So, Dean, can we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. I was a classroom teacher for 14 years, taught K to 8. I worked 10 years, or 9 years actually, at the district level, then supporting teachers with technology and a consultant coordinator kind of role. The last 2 years, however, I have been working with Discovery Education Canada as a community manager. Much of the last 6 years I've been teaching online, teaching pre-service teachers for the University of, I have to shout, sorry, at the University of Regina in Saskatchewan, kind of working with Dr. Alec Koros in a lot of capacities. I mean, that's kind of the nuts and the bolts of the professional side of things. I've been blogging for a long time, been connected with folks for a long time, with lots of people. I don't know. Let's leave it at that for now. If we want to ask more about that, we can.
Yes, and Dean, I had to put my volume all the way up. I'm probably blasting people's ears out right now who did the same as me. So as loud as you can speak, or if you have to kiss that iPad, we'll put up with that. And who can not remember Moose Jaw, right? I mean, I have the name right, don't I?
It is Moose Jaw, very famous, and not only myself, but then I have my colleagues, Kathy Cassidy, that many people know, famed primary teacher, as well of late, Shelley Wright, doing amazing things with inquiry and the like. So we're proud of our little town and some of the great educators that come from it.
How fun. Thanks, Dean. Okay, Vicki, cool cat teacher, your turn.
Hey, everybody. I'm Vicki Davis. I am just a classroom teacher, and that is enough. I'm very proud to be in the classroom. I've been there for 12 years. I actually started off in the cell phone business, and then I became a stay-at-home mom, and then lots of schools started hiring me to help teach them and taught some at the college level about how to use technology. And my curriculum director convinced me to come to Westwood Schools here in Camilla. And I love it. I fell in love with my students. It's a great thing, and I started blogging in 2005, co-founder of the Flat Classroom Projects with Julie Lindsay. She's down in Australia now, and just really enjoy connecting my classes and getting to know all of you. Twitter is kind of one of my favorite places to connect, just because there's so many amazing teachers, and it's perfect for us teachers who have a little 10-minute break here and a little 5-minute lunch time sitting at our desk. And you know, I don't feel very exciting except that I'm just a teacher, and I'm really happy to be in the classroom and working with my students.
The running joke with me and Vicki is that her book, what's the name of the book? Flat Classrooms? What's the actual title?
Minds. If you heard that. Flattening Classrooms, Engaging Minds. Flattening
Classrooms, Engaging Minds. Probably one of the densest, most interesting, best books I've read in years, with no place to write notes. I'm a note taker, and it was my first comment was there was nowhere for me. That was so full of so much information. Every page, even inside of the covers, were packed with material. Okay, so we're going to do a real drill down with both Dean and Vicki, but before we do so, this is the chance for those of you in the room to tell us the most interesting things that you learned today. You can either raise your hand and take the microphone, you can put it in the chat, or you can, if you're comfortable, you can actually click on the letter tool, the word tool, the text tool to the left of the whiteboard and write it on the whiteboard. So what are the most interesting things you learned today? Could be from Connected Educator activities, it could just be from your regular activities, but what was interesting today? I can see this one coming. I learned how to separate the chat part in a Blackboard session. Isn't that nice? It does make a difference, doesn't it? Although mine doesn't sometimes scroll down automatically, and I have missed a whole bunch of chat here. Including Vicki's book having 850 pages. Okay, Gary, you have the microphone. Click on the talk button to turn your mic on. And if you need help with it, Gary, let me know. Let's go to Greg McVeary. So Greg clicked on the Configure Audio button. So what you're looking, if you want to take the microphone, you're looking for a talk button. It actually has the word talk on it to the top left of your screen. And when Greg comes back, Candace says, I learned that a 3-hour air travel can take 13 hours. There's a story there, isn't there? Okay, Gary, if you want to take the mic, you can click on the talk button. don't know if your hand is up, Gary, because you wanted to take the microphone. Oh, somebody says I have no sound. I wonder if that's Gary. Had a wonderful conversation on @MCL that one grade 5 student can download all his own apps on the school iPads and 250 iPads receive it. Was that intentional or not? Learned a few strategies to use to assess fixed versus growth mindset. Oh, I'd love to hear about that. Who wrote that? Maybe raise your hand and let us know. Big fan of Carol Dweck and her book Mindsets. 1 acre of soybeans can produce 82,368 crayons. And I'm not scrolling automatically. I'm missing the chat here. Learning how to use game on something. Game on WordPress plugin with the help of K-12 teachers. Live blog for the session crashed, just so you know. Greg McVeary. So Greg, you're looking for a button that says talk on it. You click on that button. Don't click on the microphone icon, but click on the talk button.
I think I found it.
There you go. Yeah.
I'd say the most interesting thing that I learned today was a conversation I had with Scott McLeod. I was getting a little wary about how the number of and proliferation of badges, and we had this great little debate on, is it okay to have just these participatory badges, or how could it, where do they fit in Connected Educator Month, where, we kind of talked about this idea of the leveling up badges. So you can give out these simple little participatory badges, but if you collect 5, it's like you hand in your token to get the bigger token. So that was just a little fun conversation we had on Twitter.
Did you end up feeling better about it?
I did, because it was. I see the point, because the whole point of Connected Educator, when you think it aligns with the goals. The idea that a big push was try to bring in one other person who's never been, who's never used either a digital or an analog or some kind of method to connect with a larger community. So in a way, I think the participatory badges do, they do align with that kind of criteria. And I'm very new to badges. I was quite a skeptic for a long time until I didn't earn one. And then I worked with youth over the summer who were working, not for a grade, but just for the joy of learning. And those two events kind of brought me around to the idea of open badges. But it was a fun little conversation today that I had, and that came out of, I think, the OOE Twitter chat last night. Or no, their talk for CE13, they gave a badge out, and you got a badge for attending, I think, one of the introduction of the book clubs. So that's where the conversation started. But yeah, I never really felt bad about it. It was just kind of this internal debate I had in my head. Okay, well, I'm going to see if I got a badge for tonight. In my email somewhere, I probably have that. Thank you, Greg. Okay, Jean says, 3-hour, love the idea of a 3-hour block for more workshops of productivity. I wonder what that's from, Jean. Let's ask, where do you find tools? Not sure what tools. 1 grade 5 students, we did that app. Yes, learned that project deadlines are an incredible motivator. I learned about Google Hangout and was able to connect to 2 of my kindergarten classrooms, connect my kindergarten classrooms to an author while celebrating the read for the record. Awesome. Yeah, that to me is kind of miraculous. I learned that Coca-Cola put a green pop-up park into a parking lot, thinking how to adapt to education. Wonder what that is. After discussing cyberbullying with my students, they were happy that parents kept track of what they do on the internet. I learned that my 6-year-old grandson loves to read and retell Halloween riddles. Okay, we have time for just a few more. Feel free to grab the microphone, raise your hand, or even just click on that talk button if you want to talk. Vicki says she had a discussion with the students about gamification and badges. They said badges for the sake of badges mean nothing to them. They want to have something attached to the badges. 45 apps. My goodness. Yeah, that's one of my concerns about badges is just so many badges and one more thing to keep track of that's an external thing. Let's see.
30 seconds, final ones. Learn how to write on the blackboard wall. Learned about this webinar tonight. Yes, isn't that an awesome list, including Scott McLeod coming on. Yep, we're going to host one every weeknight. There are a lot of fun people coming and more still signing up. And the idea is for you to get to know them and for them to get to know you. Okay, we're going to move on now. We're going to do our distinguished guest drill downs. So let's start, Dean, with you. You have somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes to tell us something that you're really passionate about, something you're working on, something that you would want other people to know about. And then we're going to let Vicki do the same, and we're going to take questions in the meantime. And then we're going to finish tonight with a real meet and greet from everybody. So, Dean, what do you want to tell us about?
Well, I hope here's the thing. I'm trying to figure out where the mic is on an iPad, too. I think I'm closer to where it is now, so just give me a little feedback on whether I should be speaking much louder or not.
Your sound is clear, but it's not super loud.
Okay.
I still have my volume set up to maximum, both in Blackboard and on my PC.
Well, I would like to speak louder, but above me is a banquet fundraiser going on that I'm sitting in the men's locker room of a country club where a fundraiser for one of our schools that we're supporting is going on. So it's kind of a strange thing we're doing right here.
We're good.
So, what I guess the part of the privilege that I have in my role is that I get to travel a lot to a lot of different schools and work with a lot of different teachers in a lot of different districts, and you begin to see patterns emerge. You begin to see certain things happen, and part of what my role with Discovery is to be responsive to those things and figure out how do we support them. And as well, being married to an educator, we hear teacher talk a lot, and my wife and my oldest daughter are both teachers, and my youngest daughter is always asking if we can have a meal without teacher talk, and it's almost impossible. So when you live that and you breathe that and you're listening more than you're talking, you're trying to pick up on trends, and I don't think there's any question that I feel that we're in a really weird stage with education, and while it's awesome that we're having Connected Educator Month, I feel like there's a real strong trend. The teachers are struggling with morale and in a variety of contexts, whether it's at the district level because of initiatives from states and provinces, whether it's parents, media, whatever. I just don't think our teachers are held in the highest esteem as they should be. And so what I've been trying to focus on is finding ways to help teachers feel more empowered with what they're doing. And of course, just telling them to feel that way obviously isn't going to do it. So it's a real challenge to try to particularly work with leadership to be able to think of things that can make teachers feel empowered. Because I think the thing I think we know about teachers is so much of, that's all of us, I guess, is the perception is kind of a big part of reality, right? If you feel that others have certain expectations or criticisms of you, whether that's entirely true or not, you feel that. And so I guess the whole culture of trying to change that and make teachers feel empowered, because it's a dynamically different feeling when a teacher feels that what they're doing in their classroom is important and valued. And so that's something that's been constantly in my mind, thinking about, I guess I'm very sensitive to teachers of late and defending, I guess, in many respects, who they are and the profession in general. And tied to that, because I think it's a really, really big deal, is that we talk about a joy and joy for itself, and not as a means to an end, but that learning should be a joyful experience. And I'm not convinced that that's a prevalent part of our schools anymore. And so how do we talk about those things, and how do we begin to be intentional about that? Not just as, well, it's nice because the kids enjoyed that today, or this seemed like the kids really were engaged and loved that, but really talking about how do we embed that as part of every single day. And joy is a tough one to define because it sort of blurs, and it's not just about giggles and fun, although that should definitely be a part of it. It should be a deeper satisfaction of learning, that when we look at something, we're proud of that, and we're excited about that, and we smile together with our colleagues and our peers. You know, how do we make schools look like that and really make that intentional? I think right now it's just, it's kind of nice when that happens and we see it, and then we go on to so much of the other aspects of you know, and again, the two ideas that I've shared here, I think there's definitely some overlap, but I'm going to stop because I could talk about that for a long time, and I'd love to hear feedback from others as well. But those are the kind of sort of the big things that I've been thinking about and trying to make more real and tangible and useful for teachers and leaders.
Dean, in the panel that Eric Scheninger was on, he talked about, in a learning environment, giving teachers time to be learners of things that they were interested in. Does that map at all to your first sort of question about the role and perception and experience of teaching?
It can, I think if it's framed correctly. I think autonomy is a huge thing, but you know, it's interesting if that's not framed correctly. It can be, okay, I'm going to give you time to figure out all the stuff you don't know. I mean, sometimes it can still seem daunting. I think so much of what we do in school and what we do in leadership in terms of you know, the way we structure things is so much about how we put it into context. You can do the exact same thing with people, but if one person puts it in the right context and says, the reason why we're going to sit down and I want to give you time to learn is because I think that's an important role for you to play, and you know, and I think we want to model this for kids, and you know, just the way in which you frame that, I think, is so critical. So I think it can be, but I think it's important that it's framed really, really well and clear for teachers, and knowing that this is not another thing. It's just because I think it's important that you get time, you know, to explore and play, and not necessarily. Here's the other thing that goes with that too, because teachers have this. They say, okay, I'm going to get time to explore and play something new, and then the expectation is that you're going to immediately be able to take those things and apply that to a classroom context, which again adds that layer of pressure. I'm not always. I don't know that every time we do that we have to be able to say, okay, and then, you know, apply it, because maybe you can't apply it. But being reflective and being a learner shouldn't just be about, you know, always having to act on everything that we've learned about immediately.
Okay, so we're not going to turn to Vicki just yet, but I want to give those of you in the audience a chance to give Dean some feedback, or to connect with him on a point that he made, or to comment on something. If you made a comment in the chat that was a question, and I have missed it, let me know. I don't think I've seen a question yet. Anne asked, what would joy look like in the classroom? But feel free to raise your virtual hand. That's the third icon over in the participant box. Raise your hand and you can actually take the microphone. Or Dean, can you see on your iPad the chat notes? Dean, your microphone is off. There
Yes.
you go.
Yeah, I can. I typed it in. Let me respond to Anne's question, because I think that's a really important one. So I've been kind of, to that end, collecting joyful moments, because I think it's something that I've said before. Sometimes you can't define it, but you know it when you see it. You just say, there it is. I just experienced that moment. I just witnessed it. And so I've got a bit of a compilation video that I put together of just moments, and I've had people send them to me. I'll just sort of describe a few of those moments. One is Josh Stumpenhurst, many of you know as Stump Teacher from Chicago. He said, I've got a great image, and it was kids sort of doing the airlifting balloons in the air outside doing in science, and you could see these boys. And he told me a little bit of the backstory, how they tried, they couldn't get this thing going, they tried all these different ways, and the moment that he captured, he sent me a long video, and I just snipped, the 10 seconds. We have lift, and these boys are jumping up and down. I mean, that's joy. That is a satisfaction that we've kind of persevered. We've got something awesome. I've done things like, when classrooms have done lip dubs, for example, not the most curricularly based activity, but just a joyful community-based experience that we've done something kind of fun and cool together. And so I'm constantly on the lookout, and if folks are sharing examples in the chat room, that's awesome, because I just want to capture those and show those to people, saying it can look like that. And yeah, it doesn't happen constantly throughout the day, but I think we have to be mindful of pointing that out and knowing it when we see it.
Vicki, is there anything you've ever wanted to ask Dean?
We're in public. Well, I just think, Dean, I would like to ask you this. The most successful teachers that you observe or you find, what are their common characteristics? If you could just name one or two.
I think they are definitely people that have a lot of grit. I know grit is kind of a bit of a buzzword of late in certain circles, and there's been books written about it. But they've persevered through really challenging times. So I think that's a really important characteristic. That and I think particularly when we talk about technology specifically, because in most cases, they're the people that have said, yeah, I know this is really hard, because I still think, if you ask most teachers, technology is still hard to do in the classroom, because it doesn't always work, and this and that and the other thing. But the great teachers are the ones that says, you know what, I see something here, I'm going to go through it, I'm going to work through it. So I think grit is a huge thing. And then the other thing that is without question, a huge thing, and Vicki, you model it every day, is that you're reflective. That you and I've always said, I don't think reflective practitioner, which is the word that I sort of was introduced to, I first began teaching. I really struggled with what that meant and how that would happen, and it really wasn't for me until I started to blog that I really got what that meant. I don't say you have to blog to do it, but I still stand by the fact that I don't think there's a better way to do it, because you can drive home at the end of the day and be reflective, which I think lots of teachers are, but in that context, I think you're reflective along with, oh yeah, then I have to get the groceries, and then I got to pick up the kids. I mean, it's distracting, but when you actually sit down and you take, I don't care if you take 15 minutes, an hour, whatever, but you write those things down in a concentrated way and you really think through it. That's a deep level of reflection. So I think those two things, Vicki, are the characteristics that really separate sort of good teachers, which I think most teachers are pretty good, from really great teachers.
Okay, we're about to turn to Vicki. So if you have a final question for Dean, there will be more time at the end, but if there was something you wanted to ask him, if you wanted to take the microphone, now's your chance. Yes, two of my favorite people, says Angela Myers. Definitely two of my favorites. Dean, I'm going to leave you with one sort of interesting question. I've been reading some quotes from the 1920s about the formation of public schools, and it seems that it was pretty explicit that this was a way of kind of controlling a democracy, a large group of people, at least in the United States, that was part of the stated purpose. Does some of this tension between learning as becoming independent and free versus learning as compliance and being in a controlled environment, does it come from that initial creation of the idea of public schools that actually served those two purposes?
Oh, wow. Thanks for the easy question, Steve. Appreciate that. I don't know if I could say that. I'm sure it does influence it, but here's the thing I think that really is what I'm seeing to be a big cause of the tension. You know, so I'm sitting with you know, a bunch of teachers on, I think it was Saturday, and they're talking about, you know, a typical conversation that happens with teachers that have been teaching for more than 20 years about, you know, are the kids different? Are they the same? What's going on, right? Like, where are we at with things? And to me, I think the biggest shift, I shouldn't say the biggest, one of the biggest shifts, because there's a lot of big things happening, is going from a belief that schools were their primary and almost singular function was to teach academics. And now there is just no way, that if you're a public educator that you can just sort of ignore the social and the you know, behavioral context and the ethnic context that comes with teaching in 2013, and you just can't. And those things were kind of given. I mean, we just sort of assume when kids came to school that, yeah, their mom and dad kind of taught them right from wrong. They read books to them. They did all this sort of stuff. And whether it was true or not, I don't know, but we just assumed that was taken care of. And now, of course, we're asked to do so much more, and we can't just focus on reading and writing arithmetic. We have to address the whole person. And so I know that doesn't specifically answer your question, Steve, but when I think of the tension, sort of what's different today, I think that's the tension that we still live in, is that there's a sense that we still want to go back to those days where we assumed, again, I don't say it was the reality, but we sort of made assumptions that kids came to school with a lot of their emotional needs being met, and all we need to do is satisfy those academic needs, and that's just not the case at all, we know.
We've been listening to Canadian deep thinker Dean Shareski. Thanks, Dean. You're not done, but we are going to turn over to Vicki now. So, Vicki, you actually have some slides, and I put them in here. So there you go, if you want to start. This is Vicki's drill down.
Awesome. So I just have a few things, hopefully a minute a slide. Steve said, you know, what are the things that are really exciting for you? And I'm so glad Angela's here. The Genius Hour concept. And I've been doing Google 20% time for a while, but my struggle with it was when we really started into it, the kids didn't really know what they loved, and they didn't know what they did. So I've started with kind of a fall being Genius Hour, which is they have 1 hour a week where in my grades 9 and 10, where they are expected to explore and create and invent using technology, and technology must be involved somehow. And we have things like Raspberry Pi and Arduinos, we've got robots being built, we've got all kinds of amazing things that have happened, and they've moved so quickly and so rapidly that it's shocking what these kids have done using Genius Hour. So follow the hashtag Genius Hour. There's some great people who work with it, but it's this whole passion-based learning. 20% time Invent to Learn by Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger, a passion-based classroom by Angela Myers. So many great resources of this whole concept of students bringing their interest into the classroom. Now, don't think that it just means it's just crazy nuts. I actually have the students propose to me. I track these in Trello, which is a nice app based on Kanban principles, or Agile development, which is a software principle. But anyway, that's one thing I'm really excited about. The other thing I'm excited about that fits with Genius Hour is we need to realize that the Internet of Things is upon us. Being able to program things like the Raspberry Pi, which is this cute little $60 device, and my students actually hook it up to really big monitors. You can put Minecraft on that thing. You can put all kinds of things. It's incredible what you can do with that Raspberry Pi and how you can program things. It'll work on Wi-Fi. You can hook it to old monitors all over campus and have a Wi-Fi announcement system. There's so many things you can do with that. You've got the Arduino, you've got the Wiimotes and all the kinds of devices where you can control plugs and control all kinds of things. You've even got the Philips Hue. I don't have one of those though. That's on my wish list, where you can snap a picture and use a certain color. Now the thing I like about the Philips Hue is they've actually done some studies about what's the best light for reading, what's the best light for studying, what's the best light for classrooms, and you can use those special light bulbs to change the light to be that color. I think there's a lot of potential there, and we need to start bringing that sort of thing into the classroom, and students need to be programmers. It's time to have them stop buying apps. It's time to start creating apps. So the Internet of Things, I think, is a big deal. I think it's important for all of us as connected educators, and I wrote about this in my EdSurge piece, for all of us to be able to connect and flatten our classrooms, as Julie and I talked about in the book, Flattening Classrooms, Engaging Minds. This month I'm really excited about the Arab-Israeli conflict simulation that's out of the University of Michigan, where our students are playing world leaders. They are so excited, so into it. And it is a plain old text-based simulation. And I wanted to mention that one because you don't need to think that students need to have fancy graphics and expensive this and that. If you can have an authentic, exciting experience with other students, you don't have to spend a fortune doing fancy graphics or even having badges if you have to. We're doing things like YouTube channels, blogging, Twitter. I want them to have their own accounts. I've got some of my students reading Twitter Power for their junior hour, and they have a Twitter account. But teaching students how to find conversations, how to be part of the conversation, and also how to be helpful enough in their area that they're worth following. I never let them say, how do I get followers? You don't get followers, you earn followers. If you appreciate and you respect and you encourage and you help, you will be followed. And that's wonderful, and that's a blessing. But don't ever treat a follower as something you get. And then these are the books I'm the most excited about. Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess, Invent to Learn by Sylvia Martinez and Gary Steger. There's another great book I think every principal and every leader should really read called Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud. Start off by reading chapter 7. In fact, I think every educator and everybody who works with people, which is all of us, should read chapter 7, which talks about 3 different kinds of people and how you motivate each of them. Reinventing Writing is my book project that I'm really excited about, where I talk about the 9 tools that are changing learning, living, and teaching forever and how to teach with those. That'll be out right early 2014. And because so many of you are involved online, if you really want to understand how to build your personal brand, the best book for that is Platform by Michael Hyatt. Fantastic book. Now, there are a lot of other books that have really influenced me. Todd Whitaker, all of Angela Meyer's books, you should read every single one of them. A habit that I have as a goal is to read an hour a night. Brian Tracy says that if you read an hour a night, you can be in the top 10% of your field. And I live in the middle of nowhere. I can't get out a lot. I don't get out a lot. So reading is really my connection with the world and what all of you are doing. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention is habits. I'm really focusing on finding apps, cutting down the number of apps I have on all my devices, and finding apps that actually do things, and teaching my students how to be more productive. 2 of my favorite apps I wanted to share with you. One is Mailbox by Dropbox. I've been at Inbox Zero for 2 weeks, which for me is pretty astounding. Incredible app. My students love it. I talked to them about it 2 days ago. It's an incredible app, especially for students. And it works a little bit like Boomerang, but it's kind of different. It's free. It's with Dropbox, and if you link it with your Dropbox account, you get an extra free gig of Dropbox, so that's pretty cool. The other one is an app called Finish, and it was written by 2 16-year-old students. I think it's absolutely the best task management app out, and I'm recommending it to my students, and I'm using it to track things. It's just incredible app that 2 16-year-olds built, and it's not as pretty as Clear and some of the others, but it's a heck of a lot more user-friendly. It has something called nag mode in it, and you say, okay, if I haven't done such and such by 4 o'clock, remind me every hour until I get it done. And I've gotten more done with that cute little app than anything else. So I really talk to my students a lot, and am working a lot on my own life on the habits that make you successful. And Angela is another person to talk about that, because she has her book, The Habitudes. And habitudes are really that, they're attitudes and their habits mixed together. So those are some of the things I'm excited about, is really refining those habits, really getting the kids excited. I'm so glad, Dean, you started off by talking about joy, because the thing that Genius Hour brings to the classroom is joy. And I got some grief actually not too long ago. I got a colleague accused me of not teaching because kids were having too much fun in my classroom. And they pointed out, I said, well, what do you think teaching is? And they pointed out a teacher who does 15 worksheets a day in their classroom. And you need to understand this. If you're a pioneer, if you're a visionary, don't expect the world to lay down at your feet because the kids love what you're teaching and the parents appreciate you. They're going to be people who criticize you because you don't fit their model of what a classroom is supposed to look like, with you lecturing and with people filling out worksheets and reading textbooks and taking tests. So if you're really teaching, if you're fantastic, if you're doing things like Teach Like a Pirate, and you're really engaging the kids and talking about habitudes, and you're covering a lot of material, it doesn't always mean that you're going to be popular. It doesn't always mean that the students are even going to like it every day, because engaging is hard for them. It takes energy. Sometimes they don't want to do that. So, Steve, I'm going to hand it back over to you. I've totally not been looking at the chat, so you'll have to direct me. I know I went really fast for a Southerner. But anyway,
I wasn't looking at the chat either.
Steve.
I was in Amazon ordering 2 books, and then I was angry that Mailbox is Apple only, so I have to wait for the Android version. So if you put a note in the chat of a question for Vicki, remind us of it, or feel free to raise your hand and ask her a question or make a comment. Mailbox is so awesome. Now I feel like been worse, right? Darn that Apple monopoly. Craig wants to know, Vicki, what your day job is. Yeah, tell people about your day job.
Well, I'm teacher and IT director at a little tiny school. I teach full-time. I have 5 classes. I had plus the study hall, and I'm a homeroom teacher. Last year I was in charge of prom. I'm in charge of National Honor Society, and I have 3 kids. One's at Georgia Tech. He's a freshman. You can do that. And he changed his major today. I'm excited for him. And I've got a senior and a 6th grader. Steve and I were just comparing notes about our homework time with our kids. I have an appointment every night with one of my children. 2 of my kids have LDs, but they are doing great. And Teacher Deborah, the biggest secret I have is the first morning of my day, the first hour of my day from 5 to 6 a.m. I call it private time. I spend it on myself in reflection and reading my Bible and prayer and journaling, and really making sure that I focus on what's important instead of what's urgent, and really remembering, why do I teach, and thinking about the kids that I'm teaching, and that's really very important. But anyway, and I'm glad I get to share with people, and I'm very thankful for all of those online that teach me so much.
The secret to Vicki is her typing speed. Didn't you tell me that once?
Well, my mom was a typing teacher, and I'm from a whole family of teachers. My sister just actually won an online learning award. She won 2 of them last year. She's a professor for Savannah College of Art and Design, and she's like best online learning teacher in the world for differentiating and all that. So we're all teachers. But my mom taught me how to type when I was in 4th grade and kept teaching me every summer. So I type about right around 128 words a minute. I actually have a cute little boy that just transferred into my school from Korea, and he's about to beat me. He's so excited. I'm excited for him too. That that does help a lot, because I can type so rapidly. You know, it's part of it. But I'm a big believer in typing the old-fashioned way. I don't believe in using games, and I blindfold my students, do all kinds of stuff when I teach them to type. Their average is about 60 words a minute, so it's important.
Do you still do like 5 blog posts at a time and then schedule them out?
like this week is a busy week, and I'm trying to finish up Reinventing Writing, so I did schedule all my tweets for the week, and then when I come home, my relaxation is to check Twitter and to reply to everything as much as I can. I just can't see myself tweeting during the day when my students are right in front of me, but I do need to spread that out so that teachers who are online can get encouragement. And I do my blog posts. I do, Steve, try to schedule those ahead. I got all the way through Tuesday this week, and then I kind of run behind it. Saturdays are usually my days to schedule and write, and I'm doing a lot of cool things in Evernote. Evernote is one of my favorite apps. They've got the new Post-it note feature, which is so cool. But I use an app called Draft, and so when I have blog post ideas, I just go into Draft and I type an idea, and then I have it add as a line. I have a note in Evernote. It's all of my blog post ideas. And so if I have one, I just type it in Draft, and what Draft will do is put that idea at the top. So I have quite a few draft actions set up that I can like add to my book reading list. I like to keep a list of the books I've read just because I'm so achievement oriented. I can go, yes. And also so I can remember what I read, the actual names of the books. So I'm a real productivity nut. Anything that's going to save time for me, and then if it really works and I use it for longer than a couple of months, then I will share it with my readers. So y'all actually learned a few tips that I'm real excited about that I haven't shared.
Dean, is there anything that you've ever wanted to ask Vicki?
Well, she has kind of addressed it. I mean, one of the things I look at her, and I think, you know, here she is. She's a classroom teacher. She does all of this. I mean, she just is an amazing, you know, productive human being on so many levels. Let me ask you this question, Vicki, because I think this is, and I think I don't even know if you're in a position to answer it, because you know it's sort of the curse of knowledge. So one of the things that I struggle with, and I don't know the answer to this one. You have pretty much become who you are as an educator, largely on your own in terms of your own initiative to learn the things you've done, from the flat classroom stuff you've done, to the blogging, to the connecting, to the writing, all of the things that you've done. I'm not guessing, and I could be wrong, but I'm guessing that it wasn't because you worked for a school or a district that provided professional development for you that necessarily led the way with leadership at a local level. So you did this all as your own initiative to become a connected educator, as many of the people probably in this room have done as well. So my question is, what do we say to the other teachers in your school that you know who are as busy as you are in different ways, maybe not as productive as we think they can. So while we can give people tips and tricks about how to be productive, what do you think the role, as teachers want to become better, what do you think the role of the district plays or the profession plays in providing professional development opportunities? Or do we just say, you know what, you're a professional, figure it out on your own and be awesome?
Well, my first 2 years, I had almost 100 hours with Dr. Mary Friend Shepard, who runs the Walden University Ed Tech program. We actually had some grant money we brought in and did a lot of professional development. I'm very close with my curriculum director, and we're always sharing ideas. I do think that it's very important to bring in professional development. That's what really got me started. The GATC conference, which is the Georgia conference in November 2005, and David Warlick really got me going, and opened my eyes to the world out there. I think it's, though, very important as I work with teachers. Our approach is kind of twofold at the school. Number one, it's work with the willing. If you're willing and you ask for technology, we will move heaven and earth to try to get it for you. But the second thing that really, because when I first started blogging, and then you kind of go through this stage where you think you know more than you do, and then you kind of realize that, I'm just an average everyday person, but I know a lot of really smart people. So you have to be real careful, especially when you get active online, to never talk down to people and to treat others with great respect. And so if they come to me with a problem and they say, I want to do this or I want to do that, I want to try to meet them where they are and encourage them where they are. And that's really the purpose of my second book, which is to make it simple. So as I'm writing this book, Reinventing Writing, and the 9 tools that you use in writing, I'm picturing in my mind these 50 and 60-year-old teachers who are fantastic, amazing people. And how can we write in a way that encourages them? I think that a lot of the lack of adoption of technology is our fault. It is our fault because we haven't made it simple. We haven't made it approachable. We wrap it in all of these super geeky words, and they have enough words in education to learn without all these technology words. We can make it easier. So it's meeting them where they are, but I do think that the district does have a responsibility to have PD, and you should have it every year. But I will say this. When you have PD, you're going to have some teachers who take notes. They learn. Our best learner at our school is our 82-year-old Learning Lab director. She reads about 2 to 3 books a week. She takes notes. When Angela, you can ask Angela about Miss Atkins if she's still in the room. Angela can tell you all about Miss Atkins. And she takes notes, and she comes to me and tells me about books. She's always reading a great book about risk she was telling me about this week, and I went and bought it. So we can't age stereotype. This digital native, digital immigrant thing I think is totally unhelpful when we're talking about change, and we just need to take the attitude that, you know what, technology is what we all do. We're going to do it, and we are going to provide training, but the training we provide is going to be sound pedagogically. So we're not going to just lecture at you and give you a worksheet to fill out, which we know doesn't work, and then tell you you have to use technology in engaging ways. We're going to teach you about technology in engaging ways with technology.
Okay. Wow. We're not done yet. Tom DeVore is not going to do the preview of tomorrow. It was just too much after the opening panels. But we're going to do something really fun right now, and we're going to finish on time. So here's how this is going to work. The idea is for each of you in the room, first, to pull out the chat window and expand it. So what you need to do is to double-click on the top of the window and drag it out, or look for the menu at the top of the chat window to detach the window, because you're going to want to be able to see the window. And then for each of you in the chat room to either put in your Twitter handle or your blog address, and then on that same line, follow it with something that you are passionate about. You're going to be able to save the chat so that if you want to, you can go back and find someone. And Vicki and Dean, I'd like you to each look for 1 or 2 of those handles with passion interests and ask a question. So pick somebody out who's responded and ask them a question. And the challenge for you in the audience is to pick out one of these people and follow them. So after tonight, or tonight after the show is over, go and follow that person, or reach out, or email them, or follow their blog, or make a comment. Okay, go ahead, Vicki.
I'd like to ask Colleen how she is connecting students with the world.
So Colleen, if you have a microphone, you can click on the talk button at the top left to respond, or you can put your response in the chat.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So, Vicki, thank you for asking. I'm connecting my students with the world by having a class website, but also allowing them to create their own blogs and to reflect on their learning, but also to document the steps of their learning. And they're sharing that with our class hashtag, and we're helping each other out that way. So it's pretty exciting.
Dean, are you able to see the chat well enough on your tablet to have picked one out?
Let me ask my friend Marita. She talked about learning with play. I know her role is, you know, at the district level. I'm just wondering if she can give me a really specific example. I think we all understand the general concept of play, but I'm wondering if she has a specific example that she could share, that she either something she's already seen or something she would like to see happen in her district.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking, Dean. I just finished up having a great experience with about 160 teachers, and we just did a web quest together, and we became tech ninjas. And so I think that's an example of just playing, having fun, not really having a destination where we had to get today. And it was amazing how we actually got a lot further than I thought we could have gotten in just one afternoon with really new teachers to being connected. So it was encouraging. It was really a lot of fun.
Is there anybody in the audience who saw someone else's response and wants to ask them a question? Okay, so as a reminder, you can go up to File, Save, and save the chat. If you would like to ask a question of one of the other people in the audience, we have about 2 minutes for you to do that. Carolyn wants to know if someone has an answer to how do you deal with those that steal the joy?
I don't have an answer for that one, but I think it's a great question. It's one of those ones where I get extremely adamant and a little riled up when I see, and I don't care if it's an administrator, another teacher, a parent, whoever, you know, who like, you know, Vicki was describing, you know, saying how, you know, you're having too much fun. I just really, I mean, I don't want to say, I don't want to use the word bullying because I think that's overused, but it feels like that to me. I have the same reaction to people who do that as I do to bullies. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I have the same general reaction. That I'm so tired. I am so tired of people who don't want learning to look like that. That I'm less patient with them, Carolyn. So if you're asking me, I'm not very patient anymore. I know, and I loved what Vicki was saying about how, you know, we need to help our fellow teachers along, and she was really talking about be patient, and I agree with that. I absolutely do. But when it comes to teachers who don't get that, like I'm probably not the best person to answer that because I really do get frustrated with people who want learning to look awful, and that's why, I mean, people know me. I hate the word rigor. I cannot stand that word. And those, you know, many people know that I'm on a rigor rampage as well. So when I see the word, I always pull up a dictionary definition which talks about rigid, you know, morbidity, non-flexible, all these kinds of words that just, to me, have no place in what I want for my own self, my students, and kids in general's experience for learning. So send them my way, Carolyn. Let me deal with whoever's doing this for him. I'd love to. I'd love to tell them a thing or two.
Okay, so here's how this is going to work. We're going to finish on time. We're going to close the room, but I will leave it. I'll turn the recording off, but I will leave the room up for 15 minutes if you need to capture the chat. After that, you'll notice that I kick you out for the recording to process. Let's give Dean and Vicki a hand. Hover over the smiley face icon and you'll find the applause icon. I wish it were its own icon. But Dean and Vicki, that was really a delightful way to start this month of events. Thanks so much. Thanks everybody for coming. I think we had almost 50 people in the room. It's a nice showing. This is what I'm hoping. I hope you enjoyed it. I sure loved it. And a lot more to come. Do check out the list on my blog at stevehargadon.com or go to connectededucators.org, and you'll see we'll keep that updated. Lots and lots of fun people coming on. Take care, everybody. Good night. Bye, Dean. Bye, Vicki.